Hello and welcome to another episode of the Big Money Stylist Podcast. We are here every week, whether you guys like it or not. Just kidding. If you're here, obviously you like it, you love it. But yeah, I have fun doing it.
I'm sorry.
Was that a bad way to open the show?
I expected a lot of things to come out of your mouth, but not that one.
You know, I was telling Ani today, last week, if you saw our podcast, we were like in full, you could see like the full screen and everything, like full body. And like literally the last 2 weeks that we had full body, I showed up in sweats. Like I literally,
Boo.
and like half makeup, mascara gone. Like I looked like a train wreck and we showed up where you could see everything.
So I text Danielle, I'm like, don't forget today's full body, not realizing it was not full body.
I'm just going to put my shoes in this one.
Wait, should I do it? Because mine are just Chucks.
Well, I was telling her, I was like, this is literally the first time I've actually put heels on. I have like little wedges on and like some cute high-waisted pants. I'm like, oh, this is the first time I've like showered and got ready in probably a month.
Waste.
And it was a waste. But you know
We're
what?
doing
It's
photos
fine.
later. It's not a waste.
We'll do photos. I'm going to wear these cute pants and be ready to go. So
well, I love that you were like, Ani, let's do something spring. And I come in a long black
gothic. What are you doing?
It's springy. There's lace and like a slit.
You're going to do some, we were talking about we wanted to do like cute like beach branding photos. And I'm like, just wear something beachy. Just so you know she's head to toe in black.
This is beachy.
You remind me from the guy from Schitt's Creek who's always in black. And he's like funny, but kind of has like this dark humor. And you're like,
I love him, number one. I was watching that this morning.
oh, it's so funny. That's my quarantine show right now because it's just kind of like light and stupid.
You know another show you'd really like?
What?
New Girl.
I used to watch New Girl. I haven't seen it in a while, though.
Oh my God, I'm obsessed.
I feel like the whole world saw Tiger King, so
Yes.
that was over, so what was next?
I don't know. I'm on New Girl, Schitt's Creek, and I'm done with Tiger King.
Yeah, Tiger King was not that good. I just think I watched it because everyone else was watching it.
I thought
it'd be better.
I thought it was good to the extent of I sat there going, what is happening?
I thought it was good to the extent of when I first saw the show and the haircut and the mullet, I expected less out of the show. So when I saw that, I immediately took on the frame of like, that's where we're going with this show. So hang on to your pants, kids. So it was fun.
I loved it.
It was fun. But let's on a serious note. What number at podcast is this? 75? 175?
It's 100.
Shamalamala. That's what it is.
Every time you do
Jesus.
that, I feel like they can not hear the crazy coming out, but every time we come back, we're like, I've been indoors for so long.
Hey, you know what? Here's the quarantine. Here's how it went. So first 2 weeks.
Here's the tea on quarantine.
Here's the tea on quarantine. So like, you're like, first 2 weeks, you're like, yeah, fuck it, spring break, woo woo. Or you're like, I've always wanted to be a better mom and homeschool. Turns out you don't want to do that ever. But the first 2 weeks, you're like, yeah, it's so fun. And then like 2 weeks in, you're like, we're still going.
Teachers should get a raise.
And then you're like, by the third weekend, you're like, like you're literally like,
we're what, 4 or 5 weeks in now?
Yeah, we're like at least on week 5. And so finally I turned this corner, I think, this last week.
Why? What was this corner?
Corner, I was like, you know what? Like, fuck it. There's no reason to be like doom and gloom. Like, it was rainy here, and I think I was just like in like this like kind of, I don't know how to describe it. Like I was a little badger, and I was like, like I don't know how to describe it. Like I was just like, where's the sun? Where's the sun? Maybe a groundhog? I don't know. But now it was sunny this week, and I finally decided I want to be kind of happy, but I'm in this like loopy happy phase, I think. I'm just like,
all I know is later when this gets edited, I want that to be a clip that
little
gets
badger
sent only to me. Badger Daniel. If you want to see what she's doing, please go to dkwstyling.com to see the quarantine crazy.
Yeah, the quarantine's coming out real strong in Badger Danielle.
But do you know what I think the quarantine has also really told us and like kind of showed us almost what we're really good and really bad at, like strengths and weaknesses. I feel like when you're going day to day and you don't have time to really sit and like dive, you're like, I'm so good at this. And now that everyone's quarantined, we're like, but am I though?
You know what I've realized too with talking with a lot of our artists and especially like salon owners and business owners, I'm like, why? And I've been and still am at this level sometimes when you're like, why am I wearing so many hats?
Yes.
Like, why am I wearing so many hats? Even like with going back to like my kids and just simple things like homeschool. My husband's like, we still have a full-time nanny that needs hours. And why don't you have her help? And I was like, no. And then I was like, why don't I have her help? I don't need to be super mom. Like, do I need to? Like, that was my story. I was like, I got to homeschool. I got to do this and this. And so you kind of have to like learn how to delegate even inside your household. And I think that we just inside of your business, I think that we become like these kind of like control freaks.
Yes.
But it's not even like we're control freaks, is we just get so comfortable in a certain role And we just think that like things have to operate a certain way.
Danielle, what's something you're not good at? What's a weakness of yours?
You know what? I have realized that I am a very good. I know you asked me my weaknesses, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you my strengths first.
Weakness? I don't have a weakness. My weakness is there is no weakness. So really, it's a strength.
I am a reframe master. That's one of my strengths. I would say I'm good at consistency, sales. Again, I realize you didn't ask me what my strengths were.
I'm going to pause you. Hold up. Weaknesses first.
Weaknesses. First. I suck at structure and detail, but detail in a spreadsheet kind of way, like a detail, visually detailed, like how things are presented, how they look, how a sales page looks.
Design you like.
Design. There we go.
Design you're strong at. Details and structure.
Numbers. I actually am weirdly, like when people are like, you're not great at numbers, but I feel like I'm not great at numbers when it's like taxes and payroll and like spreadsheet numbers. But if you're talking about numbers of like, hey, how to grow your business like super profitable, I'm like, those numbers I like. Like I can see the vision of that. And I'm like, hey, we need to cut costs here. We need to add here. We need to spend our money where it counts. So I'm really good with numbers that way. But then like, again, like if it's like just literally payroll and taxes and that kind of thing. But I've had to become somewhat savvy or at least stay in the know, because how do I decide what decisions I want to make in my business if I don't know what's actually coming in kind of thing?
For sure.
Or going out, I guess I should say.
Okay, so that's your weakness. Your strengths.
I am passionate. I'm a visionary. I'm a hard worker. I am consistent.
This is the weirdest job interview I've ever done.
I would say I'd say one of my strengths is probably that I genuinely look at things like I want like everybody to win kind of thing. Like I'm like, okay, I want to win, but if I win, you win, and this kind of thing. I kind of like to see the whole big picture.
Yeah. Do you know what I think is really cool, though? How you're saying that a weakness of yours is like not structure and systems. Like that is not. So if you don't know this about Danielle, she's actually claustrophobic.
Yeah.
And I feel like even when it's not a physical claustrophobia,
it's
if you feel like mentally someone's putting you in a box, she's like,
I cannot stand it.
The badger comes out and she's like,
yeah. I legit, like, I cannot stand it. In fact, people are like, you're stubborn. I'm like, I'm not stubborn. I've really had to open up my mind to like think differently, I would say, because I'm like, don't label me that. Don't put me in a box. No. And like, I'm like the person, like, if you do put me in that box, I like go the other way to prove you that I'm not in that box. I'm like, oh yeah?
It's like, why do you like arguing with me? Well, I don't like arguing with you. Well, by saying that you're arguing with me.
Pretty much.
But I did that just the other day, but not with you, someone else. But even inside of that, you being like, I'm not great at structure, like that's not really my favorite thing. That is one of my favorite things, though.
And I think that's why you and I complement each other very well, because you're more structured, and even like coming down to like being on time for like a podcast. Honey's like, where are you? And I'm like,
literally, I'm like, you need to be, I'm like, we're starting at 2:15. She's like, okay, be there 2:15. I'm like, no, you need to be here at 2:10. So by 2, I'm like, you should be getting in your car.
I know.
You should already be ready. Are you on your way? She's like, I'm on my way.
Oh my
I'm
God.
like, okay.
But I think I need a little bit of that structure, you know what I mean? And so I think it plays a good role. And I even like just talking to one of our students this morning, how I'll just give you an example. So forever I was looking for a salon manager, right? Yeah. And I kept hiring my artist to be the salon manager. I was trying to like offload some of my responsibility, and I just was like, and I hated being a manager. I liked being a leader.
But here's the thing, because it's all spreadsheets. It's
not only that, it's babysitting. It's also babysitting. So much babysitting. And I don't want to be a babysitter. I want to be a leader. And I'm like, I don't want to babysit you. But owning a salon, I know everybody out there, or having a business, sometimes there's an element of babysitting. Yes. Like there just is.
It's humans.
Yes. Like you put people in groups that work together. At some point, you have to have somebody who's good at managing people, and that was something that I wasn't great at. Like I think I just trusted that people weren't douchebags, and I was like, they would just get along. And
it turns out it doesn't work.
It doesn't. And you know what? And that's my fault. That's my fault, because it wasn't my strength to be that person. And I mean, I managed my own salon and my own business for a while, and then I was like, I'm wearing too many hats. I'm going to explode. I want to burn when I get to this place where I want to burn my business to the ground, I know something has to shift, and I know that happens for a lot of people. And so I kept trying to hire hairstylists to be the managers, and then I was wondering why it didn't work. And then finally I hired somebody for the manager position instead of just trying to delegate responsibilities to somebody who didn't even really want it. Do you know what I mean?
But what I think is super cool is kind of like jumping into like strengths and weaknesses that I know a really big strength of mine is it's systems, processes, technology, structure. I think in structure, and I operate so well in that. And that's not your highest point. I don't actually think you're terrible at it, but I think it makes you panicky. So you're like, all of that. No. But you can literally come to me and be like, you know, we should do this thing. And it's like you're painting this rainbow going, and I'm sitting here like,
plug it in, plug that rainbow in.
And I'm like, that's a cute fucking rainbow you made. But you know what you have to do to get all of those colors and make it that big and make it go, how you want it to do? And she's like, no. Mm-hmm.
But then I used to try to figure out every wheelhouse, you know what I mean? And I mean, it was great. I knew enough because I've been in places in my business where I'm like, I don't need to do everything. So I started delegating it out. But then I went to the other end of the spectrum where I think I went too far out. Like I just was like, like even I'll just give you an example with you and I was like, you run the education. I was very not involved for probably a solid year.
Yeah. And then Garrett had warriors. They were like, Ani, handle it. And I'm like, I've never done this
in my life.
And
what's crazy is we threw you in the mix and you're a strong individual, but like this was my vision, my dream. Like I had a lot of business experience. Like I literally was like, figure it out. And you did great. But when things went sideways, like you had to just figure it out. You know what I mean?
Literally, I was put in a position. I'm like, okay, well, Garrett can't really help right now. Danielle's not here. I'm like, this is going to be the path right now because, and I will like, did I do it perfectly? No one does anything perfectly. And I'm not so egotistical to sit here and be like, I did it great. Do I think I did a terrible job? No, I think I did really
You did the best the way you knew how to do.
I did the best that I possibly could with what I was given. Right. And I feel that in many occasions, I rose to the fucking occasion and I nailed it. And there were some where I look back now and I'm like,
not the best decision.
That wasn't the best. That could have gone
But even
so much better.
Inside of that, I was like, why are these things happening? But it's because I almost delegated too much responsibility on you. And I kind of stepped out too much because I didn't know this balance. I was kind of in this place where I'm like, I'm either all in or I'm all fucking out. And that turns out was not, neither of those spaces are very great.
No.
And so from now, in the last probably year and a half, I've tried to really keep a hold of what my vision is. And even though I'm not doing single thing, if I'm meeting with you, if I'm meeting with Crystal, if I'm meeting with Jeff, if I'm meeting with like the bones of my company, it can still be my vision.
But do you know what's so crazy for you saying it's either all in or all out? I don't think it's necessary. I think it kind of is that way though, because when I think about it, because even though you're all in right now. You are all in right now.
But I just had to delegate my time.
But that's my thing. Even though you're not doing every single thing, I don't think being, quote, all in means you're doing everything.
Right.
Because even then, like, the bones of the company, and if you don't know what that means, it's the people who, like, think of your body and your skeleton. Like, you never want to trim off bones. You want to trim fat and people that you're like, oh, I don't really need
fat muscle bone.
Fat muscle bone. And with the bones of the company are Danielle, myself, Crystal, Katie. Like, it's the bones, the people who make everything run. We have meetings every week. We touch base literally every morning. Their schedules being thrown around. Like, everybody, all five of us help each other.
Right.
And I
guess it's like having a clear picture of what's going on and being able to kind of delegate, but then having you guys kind of like take on those responsibilities.
Definitely. And I think something to really think about is you have to kind of be honest with yourself and be like, you know what? I'm not great at this.
Right.
But I'm really good at this. And then you have to find someone who almost like, imagine you're like a puzzle piece and the little piece that extends, that's the thing you're good at. And the little inset and divot is the thing you're not great at. You need to find someone who like matches that puzzle piece.
You know what I used to that I tell myself too is I'm like, oh, I just do hair. I'm not good at the business side of things. That was like my story for years. And so I was like, I brought my husband in, I brought other people in. Like I just was like, well, I'm the artist. Yeah. Well, the reason I got so successful as just an individual artist is because of my natural abilities to think through problem solving, selling, and business tactics. Mm-hmm. So I don't think I like gave myself credit there. But the other thing that's crazy is I think a lot of times we tell ourselves like, would say, for example, technology.
Yeah.
We have this story like we're like, oh, I can't do whatever it is. Like, I don't know how to edit a video, something as simple as that. Or I don't know how to code a blog post, or I don't know how to work a camera, or whatever it is, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, we have these stories that we're like, well, I don't know how to do this. And it's just not in my wheelhouse. It's not in my personality. I'm going to stick to what I'm good at. There's this balance of, like, understanding your strengths, but being open and willing to learn more to be a better versed person, I would say.
Absolutely. And that's why because it's so many things that you can't take on everything because no one's good at everything. Like, honestly, you're not good at everything. And if you are, your weakness is that you're a liar because no one's good at everything. I'm not good at everything. But finding someone who fits that puzzle piece and making that like a partnership and the teamwork that works so cohesively, I think is one part of the mix. Right. But I think another really big part of it is, do you both have the same vision? Right. And I'm just going to use like us as an example. Or let's say, okay, you own a business, right? And you own a business and you're like, this is the path we're going. This is my vision. I see it. We're going to end up there. Here's the things we kind of have to navigate. That's where we're going. And then you bring in a manager to start like delegating some things. And you're like, this is the vision. They're like, yeah, that's your vision. I'm going that way. Right. And all of a sudden they take a hard right. You're like, wait. Okay, you're great at the things I'm not great at. That's awesome. I'm glad you're here to help and like take some things off my plate. But why the fuck did you make a right? I said, we're going straight. Right. And that's another thing. Someone can be phenomenal at their job, like phenomenal. But if you don't share the same vision and the same passion for what you're doing, it's never going to work.
There was a place I always felt like you and I wanted the same. We did. We wanted the same for our students. We wanted them to grow. We had this big vision of where this would go. Oh, yeah. And I think there was probably a place like last year where both of us were like, well, fuck, well, maybe we're going left and you're going right. Mm-hmm. But I think we had to have a few crucial conversations. We had to kind of collide a little bit because we had the same vision, but how we were getting there were different ways. Does that make sense?
Literally, like, yes, the end result
was the same. But we both had different ideas. Like, we were like, no, we're doing this. No, we should do this. But we both wanted this.
And you know what's so funny? You want to know a weakness of both of us? God damn it, are we stubborn? Fuck, we are so
But I think that's good because I need somebody, like, I have a vision and I need somebody to kick back on me a little bit because it makes me so certain that I'm like, no. Or it does the other thing where I'm like, all right, well, let me consider this other possibility. So I need somebody who kicks back on me. I even think that's why Garrett and I work so well because
he needs the same.
He needs the same, like both of us. Like if there's any flaw in our systems or any doubt, like we will, like same with Garrett, he will bring it to me and I'll be like, you stupid asshole. But the same thing, I'll do the same thing to him. I'm like, I like this, it's kind of like this opposing factor where you're like, okay, if I had any doubt, then nope, I'm really clear. Okay, you're right. Like maybe I need to think about this a little bit more.
Yeah, it puts you in a place of being certain, and collision isn't a bad thing. I think people hear and
people are
like,
so scared of collision.
Well, and I think people might hear this and be like, oh my God, Danielle and Ani were fighting. It's not even that. It's she would say, I think we should do this. And I'd be like, I don't really know about that. And she'd be like, yeah. And I'd be like, all right, I don't think so because of this and that. And it really, you end up with the same result and the goal. And now we're a well-oiled machine. Right. Like even yesterday, Danielle had messaged me and she was like, hey, don't forget, like we have to do this and that. And oh my God. And what about this and that? And I'm like, that's already done, Danielle. Like here's the numbers for this. And this is what happened with that.
I think because I'll be like, hey, we need to work on this, this, and this, and this. But I almost need like, hey, I did this, this, and this. Like I need like a follow-up, being like, because otherwise I'm like, get it done. Yeah. Because
and I think that's something we hadn't even talked about. That's just something that for me, because of my role and responsibility inside of the academy, I'm like, oh, that to me just always fell under my plate.
Like you were always planning on doing it.
Yeah, but for me, I'm like, no, that was already done.
Because I have this like fear of being out of the loop, I'm always like, did that get done? Did it, you know what I mean? Yeah. I'm like, did it get done?
And for me, that was a detail that I'm like, not that I assumed you knew I was doing it, but to me, it's like, I don't have to be like, by the way, I sent out this email, that email, this, but now that I know, I can give you like a month overview of like, hey, this was the touch base on da-da-da.
I feel like maybe, maybe we should have a weekly checkup where you're like, here's everything that got done this week.
And that can be. I give you a daily one. I can give you my Trello. I can give you my Trello finished board of everything that got done that week. I'll screenshot that for you. I'll let you know. It's terrifying some days. But that's what I think is so great. Like even in this, I tell her I'm going to show you my finished spreadsheet. Look at what she just did. And she went, okay. But it's find someone who fits the piece of the things you're not good at, but no, you have to have the same vision. And I was talking with 4 of our trainees today, and I told them, I said, one of the reasons that Danielle and I work so well, even though we operate in some aspects very similar because we both do hair, like we both have that, personality, we're also similar in some ways and very opposite in others. But no one loves what we do more than us. Like when it came down to like, if we had to go to war for BMS and the Academy and NBR and the artists, like we would be the first ones throwing down to protect everything that's been created because it helps so many people.
Right.
And without that, if you have someone on your team that they're like, yeah, I'm all in, but they're only all in when shit's like good and happy, I hate to break it to you, they're not really on your team. They're on their own team on your island, but they have a boat fucking stashed away to bail when it gets hard.
And you might even come to realize too, like if you have collisions with somebody, you might be like, oh my God, I didn't realize maybe we were more on the same team than I thought. Because like I said, there was times with you and I was just even like, where are you going, Ani? Like, where are you going?
And I'm like, this way.
I'm like, I know you love the students. I know you love everything that this is about, but this path is not and will not work. So I'm like,
I hear you, but I didn't see another. I'm like, and then that's when I'd be like, but there's no other path. And she'd be like, but we can make another path. I'm like, but will it work?
And I think too, there was this element because when you came in, I was like really involved, and then I kind of like became less involved. So I didn't really teach you and train you. It was mostly like probably Garrett.
We spent no time, no time together.
I mean, we have a little bit of time, but not like we do now. And I think that you were, so when I'm telling you like, hey, I know that you've been taught this way, but we're actually going to be going this way. There was this lack of trust, right? So even though we wanted the same thing, there was just a lack of trust based on how I didn't show up during that first year you were trained, right? But part of me is like, like it was almost like perfect in a way. Do you know what I mean?
I think I would not change
like I'm like
anything.
Because when I brought Garrett in is because I was missing this like element that I needed, which is probably a little fire and a little structure, right? And he stepped in for a period of time and he trained you like Garrett and I complement each other very well.
Yes, you're both crazy.
And I'm like the sweet crazy. He's like the loud crazy. But we complement each other very well. And he always told me, he's like, I'm bringing somebody in to replace me. Do you know what I mean? And so it was almost like he trained you to kind of how to train people in the modality of training and all that stuff and the technology and like the stuff that I am not great at that he's great at. He kind of replaced himself with you. And so then it was like perfect in a way, but then we had to like build back up that trust so that we were kind of headed in the same direction.
Yes. Like you had to be confident and trust me that I could handle the position I was in. And I had to trust you as the leader and the owner and like you're guiding the boat.
But even when it comes to business, because I hear a lot of people, like we're talking to our students like crazy right now. And I hear students where they say, or salon owners, or whatever, like, she's not on my vision, she's not on my path, she's not on this. And I'm like, well, how long have you been working together? Oh, we've known each other since we were 2. And I'm like, are you willing to throw away that relationship because you kind of got off path and you're headed in different directions, but you both want the same thing? Do you know what I mean? So you could hire a new person, but is that necessarily going to be easier in the relationship? Same thing goes in marriage. You know what I mean? You have like a history with somebody and you're like, fuck it, I'm out. Like, I'm done with you and we're on the wrong path. And you're like, you don't understand. Like, it might be easier to rebuild that than to rehire somebody and try to reteach them and retrain them how your brain works and wired. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's worth having that collision to find out, like, do we want the same thing? And maybe we're just on 2 different paths.
And I think that's why maybe sometimes you have to start backwards. And I've never even thought of it that way. Start backwards. Hey, what do you want? Ultimate outcome. You're standing there and you're like, nailed it. We did it. Where, like, what does it look like? And not inside of the company is X amount of people and this big. It's like, but what's the vision? And for us, it's always been, we want students to have results. We want them to be so confident inside of the hair they're doing and the color that they're putting out. Like, we want them to look at every photo that they've done and be like, fucking nailed it. And like stoked.
And not only that, like my vision was always like, I felt like I always thought through things differently. Like I kind of fell into hair because I was like, oh, I don't know what else to do. Like this seems fun. Like I'll do it. And then it like I got into it and I got really passionate about it and I started to feel like I was good at it. But my mind was never wired like a hairdresser, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Like it just wasn't. And as I started to have success and results that I was having, I realized it was, even with what I was doing as an individual, was not normal. What I was charging, what I was making, the amount of hours I was working, it wasn't normal in our industry, you know. And I'd worked in 4 different states and I'd worked in multiple different salons, and I've owned a salon and rented and this and this and this. And so I know how a hairdresser's mind works. So for me, one of my visions was like, hairdressers are like, they just don't respect what they do, or they don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're working these crazy hours and they're not getting paid. And so I was like, if I can give them a tool and we can shift their mindset, and that's really what like BMS and NBR has done for artists. And that's what I'm so passionate about, is not just like Natural Beauty Rose, but really flipping how our industry is taught to do things.
Absolutely. And I feel, and same. That's where like I was almost like getting with that, because the NBR, NBR and BMS go hand in hand. Like they just do. And I know that I'd already been doing hair for 7 years when I joined BMS, but I feel like everything I've ever learned has been in the past 4 years. Like really, I do. And that made such a different and drastic, and I mean black and white drastic change in my life, that for me, it was immediately like, I have to share this with other people.
Right.
This isn't my company. I didn't start it, but I've always said, I'm like, that doesn't matter to me. I will always treat it as my own, because it's so fucking important to me. It's so important, and it has to live and survive and thrive, because the bigger it gets, the more people we help. And that's what's important. And I feel when you have someone like me and someone like you who are like, they're obviously both very important people in the company. You fucking own it, duh. But did you know you're important here, Danielle?
Well, you know what's so funny? I always say this. I'm like, it's not about me. Like, I don't care. I'd rather build the stage and be on the stage. I'm actually quite introverted, and I get nervous every time I speak. Like, I would rather just be like, have this amazing stage for other people to have like abundance and opportunity in their lives.
Yeah. And that's, for me, I'm like, I want the artist to win. Yeah. I don't care what it looks like. And that's why I think was almost like a turning point for you and I, when I'm like, I don't care about that. It's not about the celebrity to me. Like, take me off the stage. I don't give a shit about that. I want them to win though. So how does that come across? And I think that, as if you're listening to this and you're a business owner, you really need to start almost thinking about your staff. Like, who are the ones that when you're like, okay, Danielle, this might be crazy, but I have an idea. Listen to what we could do, how it would help. And if they're ones, I don't like yes men when they're like, yeah, totally. And then later you're like, that was a terrible idea. They're like, yeah, I know. Why did
you say anything?
Why didn't you say something? I don't do yes men, but really look at the staff who's not only all on board with the ultimate vision, like the ultimate, here's the outcome we're gunning for, but who are willing to jump in and help, and also be willing to be like, I don't think that's the best idea. Like, here's my concern.
Right.
And those are really like the team members you really need to start looking at. And yeah, you might have someone on your team who's great at their job, but they might also be like, yeah, this is cool, but it's kind of weird. And I don't get it. I don't like it. It's kind of like a cult thing. And if that's the vibe they're bringing, that's not going to work.
Right.
That never works.
I just think it's crazy. Like, going back to even like strengths and weaknesses, like, you have to understand, like, where are my strengths? Where are my weaknesses? And learn how to bring in people in your life that really complement those weaknesses, but that you can also grow together. And I think that's one of the things, like, I've had to learn the hard way. You know what I mean? And not only that, is I would say those of you that are business owners, we put so much emphasis in just being the best artist, and like that's cool, but that's not ultimately what creates a win inside of your salon, inside of your culture.
Enough.
It's not enough. So we put so much time into being the best artist, and that's great, but I want you to consider that your career might take a turning point when all of that time and effort that you decided you were committed to be the best artist. What if you found other little areas inside of your business that you're like, I'm going to be the best? And I've had to do that multiple times inside of my business, whether it's like, hey, I'm going to learn photography and I'm going to get really fucking good at it. I'm going to learn how to promote. I'm going to be the best goddamn promoter you've ever seen. I'm going to learn how to do, like, whatever it is, you have to be open and willing to kind of get good at something, but then let go.
Yes.
Like, let go a little bit. But don't go too far out to where you're like, I don't know what's going on, because that doesn't really serve you either. And you have to just be okay with saying, hey, I'm not great at this, but let me like just see what this looks like and see if I can figure it out, and then kind of jump to the next place and say, okay, what does this look like?
And delegating for me has been that's been rough.
I know.
Ooh.
I remember even last year, and your eyes were like twitching, and I was like, so we need help, and you were like, no.
I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. No. And it's so funny because Danielle was like, Ani, I think you need an assistant. I'm like, I don't want an assistant.
I finally had to literally say to you, I'm like, this isn't about you. I legit think you're like the most hardest working human being I've ever seen. This is about my company. And it can only survive and become better if you hire an assistant, if you have help. So I'm not suggesting this anymore. Like, it's not about you. I know you want to run yourself into the ground.
I was like, fine, I'll get fucking help. And you know what though? And I have to laugh because oops, that's true. But I learned how to do it. And I realized like once I found people, like even like when Katie came on, at first I was like, we're going to let who do what with the, we're okay. All right.
Girl, no.
Okay. I'm like, well, that's sweaty. And it was so much. I'm like, well, Katie, what about this? What about this? And she's like, Ani, I got it. I already did X, Y, Z. I'm like, well, did you do ABC? She's like, yes. I'm like, oh, okay.
How good did you do it though?
Oh yeah.
Did you do it my way? Does it have a pink box around it? Is it in this kind of spreadsheet? Well, then you didn't do it that good.
And even now, I have one of the girls, Jackie, helping with stuff in the academy. And I send her a message. And I'm like, Jackie, I need you to do this. And she's like, I already do that. I do that every day. I'm like, oh, well.
Good for you.
Good work, Jackie. You keep that up. But that's also shown me if you show someone and you take time to truly train them,
right,
and you trust them in the role because you know they're fucking on board, you do like not to get to leave, but you get to take a step back have breathing room.
But you can't go too far.
You can't
back.
Leave the room.
No.
You got to stay in the room.
Yeah.
You're all in the same building. No one's
even
leaving
with
the
like
office.
Garrett's company right now and like storage and like some of his past employees. He was like, why do we have like $100,000 worth of like eye masks? I'm like, because I looked at him. He said this literally last night. I go, whose fault is that, Garrett? And he's like, it's mine. And I was like, I know. Doesn't that suck when you find out shit goes sideways in your own business and the only person to blame is yourself? But that's okay, because once you understand that, you take on a different responsibility and a different role, and you're less likely to fuck up in the future.
And those eye masks haven't been used for like 2 years. I'm going to throw that out really quick.
Literally, some of the stuff they were buying, I'm like, I had to bite my tongue. I'd be like, stupidest fucking idea I've ever seen. I literally was like, why? That's where I'm good with money. I'm like, why are you spending money on that? That will not sell.
And do you know what's so funny? Because I know we're wrapping up, but Garrett he's truly such an intimidating person. Like, he scares people. But I think
nobody will cross-check him. For a while, I was the only one. I was like, God.
Well, and I think because, and obviously I'm not remotely as involved in Warrior as you, but because he brought me in, and I feel him and I share a lot of similar personality traits. I feel like I'm literally a mix of him and you. Like, I feel like I sit somewhere in the middle. And
it's a scary thought.
It's like I could be your child.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, that's weird.
But I feel like I have traits from both of you that just happen to come into a different person. And even then, because he spent so much time training me and also course correcting the fuck out of me, I feel like the fear that people have around Garrett, like, I don't have that. Like, that's been gone for such a long time that he would say things and I'd be like, that's not going to work. Like, that sounds terrible.
But he needs people in his life. You have to be careful because he gets set off easy.
Yeah.
But he needs people in his life where you're like, I hear what you're saying, and you validate what he's saying or what he's doing. And then you have to say, here's what I'm seeing and why it will not work.
Yes.
You know? And you, I think for so many years, even myself, I would just say nothing. And like, that didn't help my relationship. That didn't help my business. And I was doing it out of fear of like creating some what were we saying? Creating conflict. Yeah, I was like doing it out of avoiding conflict. Like, he's gonna get mad. He's gonna explode. And then I just had to figure out how to like approach it instead of being like, oh, that's a really stupid fucking mask. Why would you order that? I'm like,
well, and even like some of the old staff that used to be here, they'd be like, someone needs to tell Garrett this. I'm like, well, just tell him. They'd be like, I'm not telling him. You tell him. And so I would almost be like the messenger every time. But I think that also almost put me in a place of like him respecting me for saying it, like,
because you
did I also get my ass beat sometimes? Yeah, of course that happened for sure. But he knew I'm never just gonna be like, oh yeah, great idea. I'd be like, that's not really gonna work. And but I'm not like, you're fucking dumb and that's a stupid idea, Garrett. No, it was hey.
I think you would never say that to him because you're not married to him. But me being married to him, I'd be like, I really had to bite my tongue. I was like, because I'd be like, why are you doing that? That's a bad idea. But I was like, it's not my business. Like, I can't say that. And I'm sure I've made stupid decisions. I'm positive I've made lots of stupid decisions. But I'm just using like him as an example. And I think that it's important whether if maybe you're working with your spouse or whoever it is, whoever you're working with, to have open communication and not be afraid of conflict so that you can figure out what roles are best complementing one another so that your business really succeeds.
Because let me tell you, once people find their landing place,
right,
damn, it only goes up from there. Because I feel like me, you, Crystal, and Katie, we landed in a place where we're like, you got that, you got that, you got that. Okay. And now we move so quickly that some days it almost blows my mind. I'm like, you already did what? And you did. And we had,
I have to say, out of this whole quarantine thing, I was like telling Crystal, I'm like, I feel like really sharp and clear and organized. And it was, I said this to my students and even you in the very beginning, and everyone's like freaking out. I was like, I don't know why, but I feel a really like a calm. Mm-hmm. Like I just feel like a calm. Like it's gonna be fine. Like it's gonna be weird for a minute. But I felt this weird calm come over me. Like, no, we need this. Like just chill out. Like you need this. Like learn something and don't be that person that's like, oh, it's all gonna pass. It's all gonna pass. Like
shifty eyed.
Don't be Beaver Danielle. What is that? Beaver? Badger Danielle. Badger Danielle is a little shifty.
So with that being said, take a look and maybe make a list on yourself of what are you great at, what are you not great at, and maybe you do that for your whole team. And that's a really good way to start looking, or maybe ask your team, hey, what do you think your strength and weakness is?
Right.
Personality, inside of business, inside of the art, whatever it is. And that's an amazing way to start really gauging who could go where.
Right.
Final words?
I have no final words.
The final words are, thank you for listening to the Big Money Stylist Podcast. If you want to see Badger Danielle, go to dkwstyling.com. And we'll be back next week.
Hey, we'll be back. And also,
whether you like us or not.
I was going to say one more thing, but I won't say that. I will give you guys an update on, because I know a lot of people listening to this are like interested in like convention and all that.
Yeah.
It is on hold right now, you guys. We do have one big event a year. We'll keep you postponed. Make sure you're on our email list and things like that. You can also go to the blog dkwstyling.com for future updates and things like that. But for now, tune in every week. Every Tuesday, we release a podcast based on like what's going on. We hope that we add a lot of value for you guys. And don't forget to share it with your friends. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.